Yato spins to win. The long anticipated Monster Hunter collab is finally upon us, and with it comes another busted limited fast redeploy in the form of a yassified Yato. Equally as important as Yato, this banner gives us the absolute Chad and bro that is Noire, and he also has the better E2 art anyways. Come with me as I journey deep into the mountains with a couple that doesn't know they're a couple, get introduced to some peculiar medicinal herbs given to me by 3 cats, and fight a big dragon that suspiciously has human looking facial features. Surely with a busted limit on my team it will be an easy event, right? In CF1, this stage introduces the most dreaded enemy in this event, the sheep. When the sheep are hit, they make an immediate beeline towards the map exit, which is quite dangerous with my team having only one real source of blocking. The 2 stars are brought along since they are the base forms and appear in a cutscene, so just let me have this one. All in all, an easy map clear with long lanes that allows Yato to spin to her heart's content. CF2 introduces the enemy that will become the bane of my existence in a few stages. The big rock boys that have their weakness points behind them. This is another easy stage setup that allows Yato to spin to max effectiveness. Both Noirs are used to block, with the Alter version taking down most enemies on the stage by himself. Things get a little spooky when Yato is unable to take down all 3 of the rock boys, but the Giga Chad bro Noire is able to take them down all by himself, leading us to victory. CF3 introduces the turtles that stand on 2 legs. They are really nothing of note since they're not very dangerous. The most dangerous thing about this stage are the sheep that spawn on the left side and the triplet spawns of the dogs. Towards the end of the map, Noire again sweeps the remaining swarm, truly solidifying his Chad status for this attempt. That's not to say anything of the 2-star Noire, who shows how useful he is even as a 2-star. At least much more than base Yato, that really does nothing except be a meat shield for about 0.2 seconds. Another easy stage clear. CF4 is a tricky stage due to having 2 exits. Noire 1 is used on the left side to take the onslaught of sheep, and Noire 2 on the right. I came close to my first failure with a giant rush of dogs coming in from the right side, but both Yatos come in to save the day as they clear out the wave. This stage introduces the birds, who are the only air units in this event. Also, they do ridiculous amounts of damage. They are a problem for my team that only has Yato as my consistent anti-air, and if I save it, Noire is S2, which I wasn't using because the weep skill is silly. The final wave is a large swarm of birds. Yato is used to clear out the sheep and 2 birds, but this makes the stage very close since I need to wait for a redeployment timer. Thanks to how the damage is calculated for Yato's S3 and plentiful amounts of skill issue, Yato doesn't take down all the birds. Luckily, the birds have a high enough ASPD that it greatly slows them down. It's enough to allow Yato to come back and clean up my mistake. My reward is a stack of cats. CF5 is a bit of a mess. Luckily, this event comes with mechanics that really help clear lots of stages. The Monster Hunter tools. The main star of the show is the wire drone that allows Yato to do the funning even more often. But on this stage, the stun mines are equally as important because this stage introduces the Pumbaa Lancers that require 2 blocks. These guys are a problem due to my lack of blockers. My first attempt goes smooth, ends unfortunately in a loss due to me underestimating how thick Pumbaa's Hakuna Matatas are, with Yato not taking him down, leading to my line of defense crumbling and me leaking. My second attempt ends due to Yato suddenly developing empathy for the Pumbaa and instead deciding to take her frustration out in the form of a non-lethal dance. After a few more bouts of skill issue, I move my defensive line up, and like most things in my life, it ends in complete failure. However, I am no stranger to failure, and I try again and change Noire's skill finally. This attempt goes as intended, with Noire sweeping and doing most of the damage. I set the backline up with stun mines as insurance. Yato on S2 deals barely enough damage to kill a single Pumbaa. There's a close call at the end with Yato whiffing on the turtle, but the stun mine insurance saves the day. And I clear the stage with the last 3 Pumbaas committing the unalive in Minecraft. CF6 is quite the tight map in terms of redeployment and lane holding. This stage must have been inspired by the 2010 cult classic Birdemic Shock and Terror. With how many murderous birds are on this map. My first attempt goes up in flames unsurprisingly. This stage forces you to get a better understanding of how Yato's S3 works, since that's the difference between taking down all the birds cleanly or having one survive with 1 HP. I find it's better for Yato to attack from behind, giving her the most chance to deal max damage. The bird themselves also need to be in certain areas of the box so it can register extra hits. In summary, it's quite annoying. This is also not mentioning the sheep on the right side that once they start running, spell the doom for my run. And for extra added suffering, there's barely enough wire drones to keep redeploying Kirito. It's a very tight clear for my team that isn't maxed out due to my now eternal poverty. Around my 6th attempt, I got in a very good run that included loads of scuffing, but it got me to the very end, where my last wire bug redeploy isn't enough to take out both the birds, and I lose at the very end due to the longer deployment animation of Yato. It was a painful defeat. Luckily, 2 attempts later, I got another good run. My start is the same, both Noirs are on the top lane of the hold. Yato 1 is used to stall the first bird just enough for Kirito to step in and sweep. I get to the halfway point smoothly, then I start scuffing like it's my job. I keep misplacing Yato to where she's unable to kill all the birds, which causes me to keep using the wire drones. Fortunately, I have just enough to clear out the bottom lane without sacrificing a stun grenade, which saves the run, since with a stun to the last birds, gives enough time for Kirito to come back and clean up the stage for a win. Now at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. It's only been an hour and I'm almost done with the event. I wasn't going to experience another 12 hours of constant failure. Then I entered CF7. CF7 changes a man. This stage setup is seemingly a hard counter to my squad, and our first ever the Sick Fuck Degenerate award is won by the stage design in this event and not by any single enemy, because some sick fuck degenerate decided that this stage needed birds, 3 lanes but only 4 viable places to put my units, and a bunch of heavy hitting enemies. Or not only that, but the stage itself is broken, with the right side lane being able to block, but the left side lane is only blockable by the middle. This is also against my team not only has one solid source of blocking, and it comes in the form of a 2-star. And I have no healer. My wire drones now can't be solely used on Yato to do the funny, since it's my only way of healing Noire 1. This stage also introduces the new enemy, the Sand Slash, that deletes anything behind it. Unsurprisingly, my first attempt ends in failure, as my team is overrun by the first big rush of enemies. Many of my first attempts look like this, essentially me just spamming the wire drone to deal with all the lanes at once, nothing ever really getting me closer to beating the stage. I switched to a new setup with Noire 2 soloing the right side, which works out and helps me get to the halfway point of the stage. However, it uses too many wire drones to be very stable. So as it always goes, in my desperate time of need, I hit the board. I map out the paths of the enemy to get a better visual of what I'm up against so I can better formulate a plan. The Michelin star chef that I am, I cook up a gourmet meal that would even have Gordon Ramsay complimenting me, make Yato kill everyone, and ensure that Noire has this good mask on to ensure max efficiency and power. Just like always, I immediately fail, proving that I should probably switch out my chef's hat for that of a clown. I keep trying to set up for the next 30 minutes or so, but I don't have enough firepower and sustain in the middle to get past the halfway point rush. At this point, I've been stuck on the stage for about an hour and it's starting to feel helpless. Like any good gacha gamer, I decide that I must pay to win and make a detour to further bankrupt my destitute account by getting Yato's level 1 module. And it changes nothing, at least in regards to beating the stage. I switched my setup to both Noirs back into the middle lane and a pocket space where I can deploy Yato to clean up enemies. This setup allows me to get to the final wave, where my entire team perishes because I never have enough wire drones for Yato to keep sweeping. I keep trying for another 30 minutes before deciding to pass with a 2-star clear, to receive the explosive barrel traps and try to clear the stage with them instead. The nuclear option does not fare too much better, but it is a very needed source of extra damage that allows me to save Yato deploys for later. I take a break since I had been streaming for 3 hours at that point, and almost 2 of them were on the CF7. Upon my return, I admit defeat and move forward with the stages with my head hung in shame. CF8 joins the list of rather easy late stages that are more about figuring out the puzzle of timings than anything too strategic. This stage introduces the big lizard boys that face any deployed operators, thus protecting their weak spots, which is a bit annoying but not the worst thing in the world. Most of my attempts end with failure right at the end due to me lacking any tools to finish the job, or me having to wait for the Yato redeploy, in which my units perish and the enemies leak. On my successful attempt, I start the stage as usual with Yato 1 and Noire 2 holding the left lane. I use a flash bomb to stun the Pumbaa and the lizard boys in a group, and use Yato 2 on S2 to clean up the enemies. An uncalculated Yato death forced me to relocate my Noire 2 to the other lane to deal with the rush and certain death of Noire 1. Yato 2 is able to clean up my mistake. I used a strategy for the second wave, and this time I do it properly, with Yato not perishing and cleaning up the Pumbaa and the lizards together. Noire 2 and Yato 2 clean up the final 2 enemies, leading to a clean and pretty easy clear. CF9, the big boss stage. My track record against dragons is not the best. However, I went to this stage full of confidence. That is thanks to the wire drones and flash bombs that were given to you in this event. Rathalos would be a very hard and intimidating boss were it not for the funny fast redeploy shenanigans you can do with the wire drones. Fun because I finally can get an easy win on a boss stage, and not because the clear ultimately ends up being uninteresting since it's just haha Yato go burr. I did beat the stage on stream with my failures, mostly coming in the first few attempts as I kept forgetting that Rathalos stunned your enemies, leading me to leak. However, off stream I beat the stage without the 2 stars and it took me 5 minutes to figure it out. So how did I beat the oddly human looking dragon? Well, like anyone else who solos this stage, wire drones and flash bombs. Kirito kills most of the sheep, but I did want to use Noire, not have him be on the team for moral support, so I set him to kill some sheep. He does his job and is retreated, and I let Kirito take down the remaining sheep. Now it's time to bully the dragon. Kirito takes down Rathalos' HP bar down by a quarter before I fully retreat her. Noire is placed on the bottom to deal with the singular dog that spawns. I finally have Kirito sweep Rathalos by continuing using wire drones to quickly redeploy and just absolutely shred the HP bar, and with just a couple redeploys the boss is no more. The rest of the stage is cleared in the same manner, with Yato just spawn killing most of the mobs before any of them become any sort of threat, earning me a very lactose filled victory thanks to Kirito's busted nature and the wire drones. Thus, my journey as a hunter comes to an end with a crushing defeat at the hands of a stage that wasn't even the boss. It is what I would say, but I couldn't give up, so I returned to the dreaded CF7. Entering round 2, I decide that I will cook up a gourmet Michelin star meal by taking the explosive and the stun mines. Yato S3 is brought to deal with the aerial enemies. I fuck up almost instantly. Once again, I show up I need to hang up my chef's hat. On the second attempt, I finally reveal my plan, which is perma-stun the middle lane and use explosives and Yato to deal most of the damage. And it goes decently well, with the stun stalling off the middle lane. However, with a lack of wire drones, I lose out on being able to quote heal unquote my defender Noire. So I retreat thinking he'll probably be fine with the stun mines and Yato. It was not fine, so I changed course and switch out the bombs for the wire drones, which goes pretty well even with some scuffing included. I get past the initial wave, but I seemingly always end up perishing to some little shit birds. I keep trying for about 20 minutes with this setup, but always failing in the same fashion. I decide to switch tools once again and use wire drones and barrels, and this is the tool combo I'd keep for the rest of my runs. I get a good first run, but it ultimately fails due to my mismanagement of placing my units, which makes me burn a wire drone to save Noire 1, but place them in a useless spot, thus spelling out my end. My next attempt goes the furthest we've gone before, by using the barrels to deal with some of the rock boys. I'm able to retain a few more wire drones than usual. Noire is unable to hold out long enough for Yato to come back from a redeployment, and I lose. But I was finally able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that this stage is doable. Someone in chat suggested switching Noire 1 and 2 placement, but in a misunderstanding, I took the advice as I should use Noire 2 as the blue box holder while aiming to switch to Noire during the last wave of enemies. However, this worked out in my favor. Thanks to Noire 2's skill quirk where he jumps and loses block, this allows the rock boys to move into his hitbox, making Noire hits not register as coming from the reinforced side, letting him deal with the enemies rather quickly. But I throw a potential victory in the trash by choking all my redeploys and letting Noire 1 perish. This loss affected me enough to the point where I start trolling just a little bit for the next 5 minutes, by me insta-licking due to inattentiveness. Once I had got out of my system, I get on another good run where I don't choke my Noire 1 redeploy and reach the final wave, which I attempt to deal with by using Yato 2 and wire drones to keep spamming her down the lanes. But this is not enough, and I lose with only 4 enemies remaining on the stage. This continues on for another 20 minutes or so, always getting to the last bit of enemies, but just not having enough damage to take them out. Luckily, the same person who suggested the Noire switch is a base Noire enjoyer with a maxed out Noire 2, so shout out to Carnage, you the GOAT. With my borrowed power, I enter the stage one last time. Noire 1 is placed early to hold the incoming rush of dogs, and the cat stack is placed as well. Noire 2 is put in front of the blue box, and is where he'll reside for the rest of the map. Both Yatos are used to take down the first rock boy. Noire 2 and the explosive barrels take care of the last 2 rock boys. I set up 2 barrels on the top of the lane to deal max damage since the rock boy doesn't flip his weakness point immediately, and it lets me deal some damage to the Sand/2. Yato 1 is again used to stall at rock boy, which allows her better version to sweep and take down the rock boy and the 2 birds that spawn. In the last big wave of enemies, I make liberal use of the barrels and wire drones to deal as much damage as possible. This time with the super built Noire 2 that is wearing his good mask, he's able to deal enough damage to not leak anyone. It gets a little butt clenching at the end of the stage as I again am dependent on waiting for the Yato redeploy timer. Luckily, the Sand Slash gets slowed enough by attacking that Yato is able to come back and the 2 are able to bring the stage home with a victory, finally bringing this event to a close with a full victory across the board. With the CF7 stage clear, it cements Noire 2 as my favorite unit from this event since he's such a Giga Chad. The event was fun and an easy time, though that may be as a result from bringing the 2 stars, but I wanted a more chilled out run this time, so I wouldn't have to get burned out by another 12-hour stream attempting to clear with just only 3 operators. With the event mechanics giving you the Monster Hunter tools, it lends to being able to clear stages in a creative way, or just brute forcing with the wire drones. Either way, it turned out pretty fun. If you got this far into the video, consider liking and subscribing. Every little bit helps. Till next time.